Yeah, so let's see if we can do a video with the sun behind me. It's not sun, but the sun is actually over there, but it's light. And I have some music in the background. I hope it doesn't pick up on video, because then YouTube will cancel all the sound in my video. So we're going to talk about 5 ways of boosting your engine, not 4.5 as I have on this hand, because 4.5 is less. We're going to do 5 ways of boosting your engine, and we have done sequential turbo setups, and we have done single turbo. This is video number 3, and today we're going to talk about compound. So it's 2 turbos, 1 turbo and 2 turbos, but you can actually compound with more than 1 turbo. So and right now I got a link on my my phone is always getting off, but I learned that if I turn the noise off, and also vibration, I turn everything off, then it doesn't pick up on video. So I have that now. Welcome to the casting couch. 5 ways of boosting your engine. Sequential turbos was the first video. 1 small, 1 big turbo, working independently of each other. The small one kicks off and get the big one going, and the small one disconnects. That's a very good turbo setup, and it's used in many cars. No, it's not used in that many cars, but it's a very good setup. Single turbo, everybody knows single turbo. It's in the name. It's 1, right? Yeah. So I got some message there that I have to read soon. So we're gonna do video number 3, and that's compound. Compound is a small turbo and a big turbo. Wow. So it's like sequential. No, it's not. It's completely different. In a compound setup, you are recompressing the compressed air, and this happens with a very small magician that has a magic wand, and you put 1 and 1 together, and he do like this, and you have 3 coming out and not 2. So recompressing compressed air, that's it. That is compound. So you have a small turbo that kicks it all off, and when the big one gets going, it shucks all the compressed air into the small turbo, and the small turbo recompresses that air and send it into your engine through your system, whatever you have, intercooler or charge cooler. Or charge cooler is for superchargers, but what do you say when it is a water-cooled intercooler? You say water-cooled intercooler. Yeah, so whatever you have, if you have air, water, whatever. So it is very efficient for diesel applications because of the little magician that do like this. And when it does that, you can boost 1 bar on the small turbo, and then you boost 1 bar, another bar on the big one, and it doesn't become 2, it becomes 3. So that means that you will not run out of compressor map. That is amazing. So you can have 2 turbos that can't handle that much boost, and they will still perform very, very well in a compound setup. What do you have to think about? You have to think about compressor map overlap. So in a sequential setup, you can have a very, very, very small turbo, because it just has to get things going, and then you can have a relatively large turbo that just keeps on going. In the compound, it really doesn't work like that, because if you have a very, very small turbo, you will choke that immediately. So you need to be decently big into that turbo, so you can get the flow through it. But it can't be big, because then you get lag. And this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So it's like the biggest turbo you can find that spools where you want it to spool. And there's not many options for that if we're talking small engines like Mercedes 2.5 and 3 liter engines. If you go up to 5.9, 6 liter, 6.7 liter, like Cummins, etc., you have a lot more to choose from, because you already have a much bigger engine to work with. But for us, it's a little bit of a trade-off to get the small one correct for the big one that we want to use. But it's doable, and it's not rocket science. You just have to think one time more. And I mean, you have to do that in everything you do. If you're going to choose a single turbo, as we spoke about in the last episode, I mean, you can't just, I want to go this turbo. Yeah, that will probably not work as you expect. So you have to think a little bit. And if you do that, it's going to be really, really good. Compound, how is it set up? So it's set up like this, that you have an exhaust manifold. On that exhaust manifold, you put a small turbo and the downpipe and wastegate, because here you need a wastegate, because otherwise you will just terminate the small one immediately. So the wastegate needs to open at a certain pressure, and say that you want that to be 1 bar, 14 psi. So you have a wastegate that is relatively large, like a 44 millimeter Tial or something like that. And what we do is that we normally use an internal wastegate and an external, because then you can overlap when they open. So you can open the small one or the internal, because that's small, at 1 bar, and then you can open the bigger one at like 1.2, because your small turbo will not choke for that 0.2, but you will not get the fluctuation and boost that you can get otherwise, where the boost just want to be, it really doesn't want to keep going. So wastegate, and then you route your downpipe from your small turbo directly to your big turbo, and the wastegates also to your big turbo. So the big turbo only runs on the waste exhaust from your small turbo. It doesn't run anytime from engine exhaust gases directly, like a sequential does. Your boost pipe or charge pipe from your big turbo goes into the inlet of the small turbo, and your air filter goes on the big turbo. And that's all. It's not complicated. It's not rocket science. It's not. You just have to think that little bit extra. Is this turbo a good small one for me? Probably it is, right? So we built with a HX30W, so it was an internal wastegate, external 44 millimeter TL, and then Holset HX52 one time, and for an OM605, so it's a 2.5 liter 5-cylinder turbo diesel engine. I have some photos of that on Instagram, I think, and it's like you get an engine to that turbo. It's because the HX52 is really big to that little small 5-cylinder, and it looks cool, and it works surprisingly well when you set it up correctly. There are other people that have run compound with HX30s and got them to choke. That's where we got the experience to do the external wastegate hack. So we're running dual wastegates. Of course, you don't need a wastegate on the big one, but you know that already. The wastegates are only there to bypass the small turbo a little bit and get it into the big one. It's not to release any pressure of any kind. So very, very easy to set up if you know how to. And because the sequential, you need to disconnect one turbo, and you need to have the exhaust gases from the exhaust manifold directly to the big one when the small disconnects and so on. So it's a little bit more complicated to set up. You can buy a normal cast manifold on the internet and set up your compound system. You just have to brace the big one maybe, huh? But it's not that hard, and it's a good way to create more boost. I need to boost 4 bars. Okay, what turbo has a compressor map that goes to PR5? Yeah, that many. So, but with the compound setup, it's easy. It's nothing, because of the little magician, and his magic wand. So that's all for Turbo School class number 3. Class, is that what you say? Grade? 3rd grade? You're going 3rd grade? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Lesson number 3 on Turbo School: 5 ways of boosting your engine. Not 4.5, because that would suck. I see you in a couple of days, and then we're gonna have episode number 4. I think it's turbo related. Stay tuned and we'll see what happens.